also hit live streams on X, YouTube, Facebook, and Rumble. So hit the like and subscribe buttons and be sure the notifications are on so you know anytime we post new content. Joining me for this week's show, co-founder of TOR and number 171 in the 2024 edition of C70's Top Cards on Twitter, Ron Nuttall, and our permanent guest host, Elliot Dewey. Gentlemen, do you know who wears number 42 for your team tonight?
They all do.
That's right.
Hey, I got a case. Real life example of what you just talked about, Pete. And it's funny that you brought that up.
Okay.
We're out here. I had the game on. I don't have the game on behind me because you cannot rebroadcast or transmit in any form
without the express written consent of Major League Baseball.
Yes. So that is not the game on behind me, but we were watching it earlier. She went on the same little rant. You didn't go on, but you mentioned, but she went on a rant about that. I don't even know who these people are, was the exact quote. No kidding.
I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I get it. You're hoping to sell jerseys.
No, you're hoping to sell jersey.
Yes.
I want my favorite player's 42 jersey. You're like, well, that's right. Shit, it's all of them.
It's all of your favorite players' 42 jerseys. It's also your least favorite player's 42 jersey, right? Because you could argue that if I went out and bought a 42 Cubs jersey, I'm wearing an Ian Happ jersey, and that's just not going to happen, boys.
Right. Yeah, and that's a good point.
Of course.
The other thing I love is during the intro music, and it's a good thing when I edit this, I don't use the intro music you play on the broadcast, right? I put a fresh track down so it sounds clean.
Sure.
But I think I want to leave it in. Just hearing Elliot's microphone rattling off his desk during the intro music gave it flavor that we don't normally get. So I may just leave it alone.
That's right.
Excellent. I aim to please.
You aim to please. All right, so gents, we're coming into the game, and Ron, obviously this is going to drop you off a little because, it's very Cubs heavy, as apparently there's a fire truck pulling into Ron's garage in the background.
Wow.
But a series of moves right before we went on, including the big one, Matt Shaw getting sent down to AAA. Elliot, your thoughts?
I didn't see it happening this quick. I figured he would have a little bit more time to kind of figure things out a little bit because the batting average isn't great. But after listening to Craig's pregame, wants him to go down and work on some things. I mean, they have a plan, whatever it is, we don't know. But he kind of made a really good point by saying this part of our season is going to be unrelentless with high quality pitching. And we don't want him to get into some bad habits because he's not going to get a break and get easy pitchers. And which I didn't even think about. So I thought that makes sense. So, I mean, we see this a lot with rookies, especially this young of rookies. But I was a little surprised that it happened so quickly. So I figured they'd give him until May, but
I'll tell you, I think, and you hear this a lot and it seems like a platitude. You hear so much that it really is a platitude, but I think that it is true. This is good in a promising player's development is to struggle, because the one thing that he hasn't done since he got drafted is struggled. He's hit at every level. The adjustment hasn't taken long. And this time he hasn't adjusted. So this is good for him. It takes the pressure off. He gets to go down to AAA. He gets to be more comfortable playing third base because he didn't have much time to learn third base over the last year. And he also gets to experiment with whatever he needs to do. I got to tell you, I think the camera test definitely mentioned or matched the in-person test. He looked completely overmatched, so whether it was watching it on TV or when the boy and I were in Sacramento, he never looked comfortable taking it at bat.
He has a very unorthodox batting stance as it is anyway.
He reminds me of Stan Musial.
And he swings down at the ball, which is always a little weird to me because in this day and age of launch angle, he is the opposite of that. And he's either swinging level or he's swinging down at the ball, which just looks so weird. So
Go back and I mean, at your leisure, go back and see if you can YouTube some clips of Barry Bonds because he swung down too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so here you go, Ron, because I know I saw the skepticism in your eye, and I made sure of it.
Cub player comparison to Stan Musial, you are going to get that look.
Of course, and I knew what I was doing. I knew what I was doing because I looked. Okay, now granted, Stan Musial, a lefty, but we're all seeing this now, correct?
Yep.
All right, so you see how Stan was closed off, and he kind of was back to the pitcher, right? All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the share because I'm going to go over and I'm going to give you Matt Shaw's load. You'll see it here on the right-hand side of the screen. Not terribly. That's mid kick, but he loads up. He is not open at all. He is very much closed up, just as much as Stan Musial is.
You know how I think is your better proxy. You can say closed up. There have definitely been players, especially more of them from the '80s, that were closed up on stance.
Yep.
So I think you're off on the Stan Musial comparison, and that's not because it's a sensitive area. But I think if you look at that big load, that leg kick, I think your proxy's Kirby Puckett.
Well, it's not the leg kick; it's how closed off he is.
Yeah,
go look at Kirby Puckett.
And what none of those pictures didn't show is his toe is literally pointing at the catcher and the umpire,
and that was something also
his heel is facing the pitcher.
And that was also something that Stan Musial did. He had a very narrow stance before he strode.
Yeah,
I did my research, Ron.
You don't see the closed off stance that much anymore. Those things.
You don't.
You look back at all the great hitters, like I was going to name a few, and you wouldn't call them all great, but really good. Will Clark had an extremely closed stance.
He did.
Jack Clark. We'll stay with the Clark lane, number 22. He, former Giant, former Cardinal, former Yankee. He had an extremely closed stance. I know there's more that I'm probably not recalling out here, but it was definitely a lot more. But you saw that a lot more in the 80s. George Hendricks. Okay, it's a Cardinal, so I'm going to remember that. So I've seen the clips of, right? So a lot of these guys, you just don't see that anymore. It is odd to see, and it's odd to see even kind of that load to where you can almost read the numbers on the back.
And that's the thing is that with Matt Shaw, you can see his name. You can read the numbers on the back before he starts anything else.
Well, it's just interesting because you're going to see people, and that's I guess that's a risk. And as you're young and developing and growing, everybody's starting position is going to be a little bit different. Like if you tried to teach every kid the same exact mechanics, the same thing, it's going to work for a few and it's not going to work for others because everybody's body is built different. Your brain is programmed different. And there's some people that just can't. You explain to me a submarine pitcher versus, an Adam Wainwright that throws, directly over the top. And it's all about just differences. Some people's mechanics, their physiology just works in a different way. And, when you try to teach every kid to mimic the same player in the same way, it doesn't always work. So I like seeing those unique differences. I don't like seeing everybody batting the same way. And it's different. Like Elliot mentioned, he swings down. I'm like, yeah, Barry Bonds was an advocate for swinging down because he said that provided loft. It got his wrists, snapped at the right point and that provided loft. So, you never hear a youth coach who probably never even played in college ever be telling a kid to swing down.
No.
I took my sons to lessons too, and I think the guy knew what he was doing. But he did have them training on two tees that were one set up behind the other. The first ball was low, the second ball was up a little bit higher to train them to swing up. I didn't necessarily like that because I like the more level swing to keep more of the bat in the zone, and I think your chances of hitting it are better. But that's me. That's how it works for me, and not necessarily how it works for everybody. But
right.
And I did play college, and I was really good, and that's why I ended up in the Marine Corps. I was so good.
Well, Elliot, kind of tied to this was obviously a number of other moves. I mean, obviously the Cubs sent a couple of pitchers down. They optioned out a couple of others, but also, what is it? Vidal Brujan. I'm not sure how he pronounces it, but he was brought up. And I kind of wonder if part of the motivation for making this one was to buy Shaw some time and to allow him to adjust now, to work on some stuff, but also to buy themselves some time in making a decision about Gage Workman. Because the one thing that they can't do is they can't send Gage Workman down. We talked about him several weeks ago. He's a Rule 5 pick, and he's not looking particularly good at the plate either. I think he's got, 5 strikeouts in his 10 at bats.
And they've been very limited and struggling,
but
too.
And he looks legit with the glove. But you can't send him down to the minors to work on something unless you work out a deal with the Tigers. And if the Tigers don't want to work out a deal, you got to release him, and he's got to clear waivers to get sent down. Somebody else is going to pick him up.
Yeah. And then not expected was Eli Morgan was sent down, but they said, he's been working through an elbow injury, which could be phantom, who knows. And then Nate Pearson was optioned, which was the big blow up last night. The late loss again last night.
Well, he got dinged and dunked to death.
He did. Well,
I was watching that.
Our favorite player didn't help him out at all.
He's a Gold Glover though.
Yeah. Watching. I mean, that's his ball. You are 100%. You are coming in on that ball. You keep going. You call everybody off. You do not pull up for the infielders.
No, the shortstop does not have primacy over you on that play.
No. You call off Swanson. I mean, Matt Shaw peeled off.
He peeled off early.
Yes. So then we get Luke Little and Daniel Palencia, who are being called up. So we'll probably see them tonight at some point.
I'll tell you, unsurprising. I mean, yes, given the blow up, it makes those two easy to send down. But also I think that you were probably getting at the point where you were looking at doing some options anyway, just to buy some guys some rest. Yeah. The bullpen's been getting a lot of work, and I think the bullpen's going to get a lot of work this year. So not surprising.
Well, and another thing that it does is it shows us that, hey, Jed, your fringe bullpen is not working out the way that you thought it was going to.
Hey, Elliot.
That everybody else kind of knew it was going to work out.
Hey, Elliot.
Yeah.
What was the name of last week's episode?
Oh, I don't remember.
Ron, what was the name of last week's episode?
Is it too early?
Too early.
It's too early.
Yeah.
It's too early. Because I do believe that 2 nights ago, Stressley Presley had a 1-2-3 ninth inning with a strikeout against the Dodgers.
In the last 12 games, the bullpens had like a 1.1 or 1.8 ERA over those 12 games. So, too early. I mean, I get it, but when they blow up bad.
Yeah, well, what bullpen doesn't? I mean, other than the Dodgers this year, because they gave up 16 runs on Saturday night. I'm sorry. Yeah. Ron, speaking of it's too early, Cardinals are 8-8. And there seems to be a little bit, I don't know if you've caught it, but there seems to be a little bit of murmuring among Cardinals fans of screw the front office. We're still going to support these guys because they're playing hard.
Perhaps. I don't know what the attendance is tonight. I had the game on.
Well, I mean, I saw on StubHub and on SeatGeek that tickets were going for $16, which is,
Well, they were at a lower point last year.
Yeah, I know, but remember, Ron, it's too early.
It's too early.
Give it time.
Well, so this has been. I'm glad you touched on this topic. Let's talk about attendance first, right? I didn't pull up what is going on average around the league. I do know that there are a lot of things that are impacting why we're seeing so many empty seats in Busch Stadium. And I'm in no way providing air cover for this front office or the owner. I think we can debate on what is the bigger cause and what are maybe contributing factors, but maybe not to a degree that's really moving the needle. But I will say that one, because because I have to deal with this in my daily life. What's going on in the economy? What's going on with consumer fear and uncertainty? So we saw this back in 2009, if you guys recall, when the housing market is bad. Fewer newer things are being sold. It's an indicator of what's going on. And when that happens, people do tend to pull back on discretionary spending. And going to a baseball game is discretionary spending. It's entertainment.
100%.
So I can't say that that's not a contributor. And I think if you look at where the attendance was last year it wasn't great either. This one thing, I don't want to go there yet. That's playing a part of this, but I think the bigger parts are fan apathy. And guy on Twitter, we followed each other for years. Name's Rusty Gropel, Cardinal fan, but he made a really good point today on Twitter about access to the game, even on TV in the Midwest market, has been hit and miss, right, over the last 4 or 5 years of, streaming as people cut the cord and went to streaming services, they one by one, they kept dropping the regional sports networks. Mm-hmm. And so you would be living in the same town maybe you've always lived in, always been able to watch games no matter what. Now all of a sudden you've been cut off. And his point is, he thinks that's created some distance for those people that are kind of on the bubble, maybe a couple hours away from the park that would normally go. I think when you were exposed to your team a little bit more, maybe you're interested in actually going to see them and your kids wanting to go see them. That does diminish when you feel disconnected from the team. And that's the point he was making. I think it's very, very valid that that's something that's happening. But I do believe it is the ownership's aloof superiority over its fans' opinion that has caused this divide. And I don't think people are going because they don't want to support the players. I think it's the organization that they're kind of like, well, if you guys don't care, then why should I? Why should I care? I think all of those things are contributing to what you're seeing happen in St. Louis right now, a market that has always outperformed its market size and its stadium's proximity to where a lot of the population lives. Again, I've said it on here many times. They draw from hours away. And when you have an ownership and a front office that's kind of done what they've done over the last 4 or 5 years, I think fans' patience, what Mo always likes to preach, patience. I think the patience ran out a long time ago. You take the TV thing, if you're absent from able to be able to access them on TV, it just feeds that notion that nobody cares about you as a fan. When you can't watch the game and there's no answer, right? Well, sorry, you just can't watch it. You have to get satellite dish again. And then I think you couple off with the uncertainty in the economy, and hey, people are pulling back on big ticket purchases. And I'd say that, taking your family and spending $400 to $500 on a single game, which could very be easy to do, right?
Yeah.
People are making different choices these days. So it's a perfect storm. And we're seeing it. I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm not embarrassed by it at all. It's just, it is what it is. And, I'm hoping this isn't the new norm, but if they don't change their way, it could be. So
I'll tell you the one thing, and I was thinking about it as you were talking there, Ron, and you kind of alluded to it a little. And I know that we've seen it some in Cardinals fan chat, but we've seen it with other teams as well. And I don't think it's effective is when fans think that they're going to send a message to a team ownership, because when has a fan boycott of any kind or fans demonstrating, right? When has it ever actually done anything?
Yeah, I don't know that. Well, no, I will say this, Pete. I do think that after the 94 strike, I think that
was baseball wide.
Right. Now it was baseball's fault that happened, but I think the fan response to that over the next few years, I think it did scare the shit out of Major League Baseball.
But I think that was because it was industry wide. But I'm talking specific to a team,
specific market,
right? So think about it. The A's fans organized boycotts last year, right? That they were not going to go to games
them too.
And did it change anything?
Yeah, no.
Light a fire under John Fisher to find a solution, right?
Yeah, no, Pete.
And I don't think it's going to have any effect on St. Louis's ownership either.
And point well taken, right? Because you can look at the Rams and a protest over that owner, and he was going to move the team no matter what anyway, right? Like so. Yes, I don't know or think that this will have an impact, but I have never seen it this empty under the DeWitts.
I agree.
So I don't know. I tend to agree with you. Like, yeah, piss and moan all we want, not go. I don't know that it's going to make things any better, or they're going to get a message from the fans. I think the fans like to think they have an impact on, like we think we have an influence over things, but at the end of the day, we really don't. But I will tell you this, though. Of all the investments that owner has made, and not just in the team and the ballpark and the surrounding community, ballpark village, all of that stuff, is a lot of investments been made in that. Look, what drives everything there is the quality that you put out on the field and your willingness to show that you're committed to doing that. So until DeWitt is able to turn the corner and kind of prove himself again to the fan base that, hey, look, I know this sucked for a few years, but this is what we did to correct it. If he can turn the corner and it actually start working, I think you'll see. You may never see it to the levels of 2022 when Albert came back, but I do think that you won't see this. This looks like a Reds game when I was watching it. And I do think, Pete, that I don't know what those conversations are like. I don't know if he's laughing it off, but I doubt he is, because that revenue he needs for all the things that surround the park are driven by the fans that go there. If they're getting hit everywhere, I have to think he's feeling it. And it might not be well, I don't know. It remains to be seen. I think there's a lot to prove, and it's going to be a little bit of a road ahead. Now, how this team performs this year and how they respond to the organization not doing shit to support them in the offseason, if we'll see. Maybe they'll pull a Cleveland Indians, right?
Yeah. Well, and you've even got some of the players saying stuff too. I mean, you had Wilson Contreras make a public comment about fans not coming to the games and saying, "Hey, we play for them." So,
well, I'm sure as a fan, I appreciate that, and I for him, for a player like him that recognizes that, I wish there were more fans in the stands, right? Because I think he's the type of player that feeds off of that stuff.
Totally.
100%. Yeah.
So I'm sure it does impact him. And I do feel bad for him, because the more we've experienced with Wilson Contreras, his willingness to move positions and how he's played, how he's fought through even starting off the year cold, and he's starting to hit now. I really like the guy, and for him, and any player that feels the way he feels, like, I wish there were more people there, but I understand why people aren't going. And we live in a strange world right now, guys. And I think that, the delta from last year to this year is definitely economically influenced. And I do think some of their non-action in the offseason is obviously an influence on it too. But I think it's those two things that are seeing. You weren't seeing sellout crowds at this point last year in 2024. You're seeing even fewer now, but I believe it's driven by economy and just the fact they didn't do shit in the offseason.
I tell you, I think that one of the possible saving graces is that because Ballpark Village is so dependent on people going to the game, right? It's not in a residential area. People don't generally live around Busch Stadium. And so you're not going to get the kind of economic activity that you would hope for if people aren't showing up for the games.
Right.
So it could influence something. And I think that that's true of most baseball teams. And that's something that does scare me a little bit and makes me a little nervous, and we've seen it, and you've heard me complain about it before. The Cubs are a little bit, even before the massive renovation of Wrigleyville under the Ricketts, the Cubs are a little bit insulated, I think, against bad play. One, because Wrigley is so iconic that people will go there regardless of the quality of baseball that's being played, simply because it's a great place to hang out and get drunk, which drives me nuts to no end. Ron, you've been with me at a game when I've complained about my fellow fans, but also because Wrigley is in a neighborhood, all of the businesses around it, they're not necessarily reliant on baseball games. There are people who live blocks away, and obviously our economy and our culture has moved less from doing things at home together and more to finding ways to go out and do things. And boy, if you live in Lakeview, if you live in Andersonville and up north there's a lot of things to do around Wrigley, even if there isn't a baseball game.
Yeah. And I can't say that the same thing for that area of downtown St. Louis.
Right.
If it's not a sporting event going on, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Cardinal game every time. There could be, Blues
game. It's
Blues game in the playoffs.
Walk.
Right. They'll well, even if the Blues aren't in town, if they're like in a playoff game, people will flood Ballpark Village in that area so they can watch it on the big screen with all the other fans, right? So
Sure.
There's a few things like that happen, but it's very sports dependent.
Right.
So yeah,
people don't live in the area.
Right. But there's just been a lot of noise about the attendance and everything else. And they're starting the talk is starting to pick up amongst fans about what's actually going on between the lines, which is good. This is good, right? Because it's been a long winter and all we've heard about is, moves they didn't make. And now we're talking about empty. Hopefully we turn the corner and stop talking about the empty seats and we can start talking about what's going on the field. So there have been some things that have looked really good, right? Like, I know they're sitting 8-8 right now, but they just last night they beat Alvarez, they beat Wheeler, and they beat Nola a couple nights. 3 out of 4 games they beat some pretty good pitchers. Now, of course, they're probably going to get shut out tonight by a guy I've never heard of. Last name is Brown, pitches for the Astros. But that's Cardinals being maximum Cardinals right there. Like no name pitcher is going to shut them down. That usually happens. But there are some bright spots, and I think at least I've watched a lot more baseball than I did last year already up to this point. And there have been very few games. Take the Boston series out. They've been in every game. They lost a couple extra inning games to the Angels. I didn't realize the Angels were off to this good of a start.
Well, it's the Kyle Hendricks factor.
I don't know if he pitched against them. I think
against the Cardinals he did, and of course they lost.
Won.
Okay. Yeah, but I was looking at the Angels are 9-6. I mean, look, it's too early, but it's not too early for me to say Mike doesn't give a shilt about the Dodgers. They are 14-3 on top of the NL West. The Dodgers are in 3rd place,
and they are undefeated at Petco. They are 11-0 now at Petco.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, he's doing well with them. They'll come back down to earth. Everybody does.
The Dodgers were also 8-0 until the Cubs came into town.
That's right. And the Padres were, I believe it was 7-0 until they came to Wrigley.
They were.
So
until they came to Wrigley.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like I should brag about the Cardinals were 3-0 at home until the Angels came.
That's right. Until Kyle Hendricks took them out. Hey, Ron, we usually like to bounce back and forth between the two teams, but I think you provided a great segue. Did you happen to read the article by Josh Jacobs and Redbird Rants yesterday?
No, I did not.
It's a good one.
Bring me up to speed.
I will. So the title of it, and I actually I delayed making dinner last night because I was so captivated by it. I thought it was, and I had the lad, so he's getting hungry, and I'm like, 5 more minutes, kid. But the title of it, 11 times the Cardinals allowed fear to drive poor decision making under John Mozeliak. Really intriguing article, and we're not gonna go deep into it, but I'm gonna give you the 11 items that he listed.
Can I guess a couple? Can you tell me if I got them right?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. Hayward.
No.
Really? That's not in there.
No.
Okay.
That's not one of the 11.
Really?
Yeah.
Fowler.
Fowler's one of them.
Let fear drive them. I've got to come up with I can't just stop at Fowler.
That was number 4. I don't know that he necessarily ranked them in order or
okay, go through them. I'm curious. I'm going to kick myself in the ass for not knowing them, but go ahead.
Okay. So number 1, got to get back to it. Went too far. Number 1, hiring Mike Matheny instead of Terry Francona. Yeah.
Okay.
That's number 1. Number 2, bouncing around here, allowing Albert Pujols to walk in free agency. And he makes a pretty interesting case for that one, basically saying Albert Pujols was good when he first went to the Angels. And would he have fallen off as precipitously if he had stayed in St. Louis? Nobody knows. But would the Cardinals have been better with Albert Pujols 2012 to 2015 than without him? But their fear was that he was going to fall off the cliff and that they were afraid of the contract that he was going to sign. So that's the argument that he made.
Okay.
Number 3, this is an easy one. Passing on Max Scherzer.
Oh my God.
Passing on Max Scherzer, not only despite him wanting to pitch in St. Louis, and I hadn't realized, I don't know that I hadn't caught this, but obviously I'm a Cubs fan. I'm not a Cardinals fan. But the fact that he reached out to Adam Wainwright and was willing to take less money to play for the Cardinals, as long as the Cardinals were, and yeah, here's the, let me find the, here it is. Apparently Scherzer reached out to Adam Wainwright and told him that he wanted to pitch in St. Louis. And if the Cardinals got in the ballpark of the Nationals offer, he would sign with them. They never even called.
What?
I think if you, I don't want to rehash it, and I'm not making an excuse for the Cardinals at all. I think at that time, though, they thought they had a wave of young arms coming up.
Right.
And
is that the Flaherty?
And that's
time?
what, and yes, this is when they had Wainwright, Lynn, Waka, Garcia, Lackey, and Martinez.
Yeah, it was a little bit before the before Flaherty, but there was a wave of pitchers that came through that I think they were really betting on the come, and it didn't happen.
But this is the argument that he's making, is they were afraid of signing a guy. Doesn't matter if he's a Cy Young Award winner, of signing a guy at age 30 because Mozeliak was afraid of the fall off. Right. Same thing with not signing Albert.
And I would say that just like we've made a comparison to the Lester contract, very few in baseball live up to their value. And you'd have to say that Max Scherzer, he lived up to the value of that contract.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because in detailing that, Jacobs actually notes that that John Lester was signed within that same time frame. I mean, obviously it wasn't the same, but was signed within that same time frame as the Cubs sort of announced their presence, their willingness, and that the Cardinals didn't make a bold move like that. All right. Number 4, Dexter Fowler. That's an easy one. You nailed that one. Number 5, the Marcell Ozuna trade. And the argument that he made with our Ozuna trade is the Marlins had all 3 of their outfielders on the trade block that offseason, if you remember, and eventually they all went away. The Cardinals had a deal for Stanton. Stanton rejected it.
Yep.
They made nearly the same offer to the Marlins for Yelich. And instead of waiting out the Marlins, Mozeliak, the argument that Jacobs made is Mozeliak panicked because he was afraid that he was going to get none of them. And so instead of holding out and waiting the Marlins out, seeing how desperate they were to clear the decks, he settled for Ozuna instead.
And give up Sandy Alcantara, Zach Gallen.
Yep, Zach Gallen.
Jesus Christ, they're both like on an all-star team together,
right?
Or not together, but they were well, maybe not, but they've both been all-stars.
And instead, right, traded them away for a guy who never lived up to what you expected him to be.
They let him
missed out on an MVP and an MVP runner-up because you weren't patient enough to wait out another team.
Well, yeah, that okay. I totally agree with that one.
And afraid also of what more the Marlins were going to ask for in order to get Yelich.
Yeah, I think, who knows? Like the story from the Cardinals where Yelich simply wasn't available. The Marlins weren't going to deal him. He was the youngest in that group. I think the farthest away from free agency, I think, was Yelich at the time.
Yep.
I think their impression was they weren't gonna offload him yet, and so I would agree with that story. And I often forget about the Ozuna deal, so that's a good one.
All right, number 5 or 6. Sorry, not pursuing Bryce Harper in free agency. And here's the argument he made.
Okay,
here's the argument he makes, and this is taking it from Derek Gould, who was asked about it last year. That he was calling basically everybody. He was saying, I'll play anywhere as long as the offer is right. But the Cardinals had made the deal for Paul Goldschmidt that year. And so Gould's argument, not even Jacob's argument, but Gould's argument is that that they were worried about having 2 huge contracts. They were afraid of having 2 huge contracts and didn't take into account how Harper might have fit on that team. So they didn't even pursue him. All right, number 7.
I think, hold on.
Go ahead.
I got to comment on each of these, right?
Yeah, I think you kind of do.
So, I mean, look, who wouldn't want a player like that a generational like player with a
Who
lot.
was only 25.
Yeah, I know, and that doesn't happen often, right? With a hit free agency that early, like you got Machado, you got Harper, and those guys. Yeah, those guys don't they don't usually hit it that early, so they're getting big, huge paydays. I never had any hopes of the Cardinals being serious about being in on the Harper deal at all. You know, I thought it would be a big market club, and they would be squeezed out like they typically were. So my hopes for getting him were like, I don't know. I never had any expectation whatsoever.
But don't you think that he might have? I mean, not on the same scale, but don't you think that there would have been a financial return in having added him the same in the vein, not the same way, but in the vein of what Ohtani has done for the Dodgers? There would be money coming in because Bryce Harper is a Cardinal.
I would. That would be hard to argue that wouldn't have happened. It definitely would have added some star power and some pull, and that place would have been rocking and packed. And definitely in his first year, not beyond that. Anyway, that's the dog whistle, and no, okay. So I don't know if I would lump that one. Jesus Christ. I don't know if I would lump that one in a panic or a fear-driven thing, though. That one doesn't feel like a fear-driven thing to me. That's to me is like, we're going to lose out on that deal. Like it's a big star. Like it's going to be down to like four big markets and maybe one dark horse like a Seattle or something stupid like that that'll be in on the Harper deal. So I don't know if that one was fear-driven. That's probably one I disagree with.
Okay, here you go. Number 7. I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with this one. Prospect hoarding after getting burned in multiple trades.
Yeah, absolutely. That is fear driven.
Because here you go. Here's my favorite one right off the top.
Sure.
At the 2019 trade deadline, the New York Mets shopped starting pitcher Zach Wheeler, and when the Cardinals came calling, they asked, "Are you ready to throw up?"
Bader.
They asked for one of Tyler O'Neill or Harrison Bader.
And those are the.
You wish you could have that one back.
Those are the same two. Those two players are two that made Adolis Garcia All-Star and Randy Arozarena All-Star. Those two guys you mentioned that the Mets wanted for Zach Wheeler. Those two are who the Cardinals placed their bets on and dealt the other two away.
Yep, and
that will drive fear into the heart of any man sporting a bow tie. Is when you fuck up deals that bad.
Right. And then he talks about it. He says, while the Wheeler trade's the one that we have good reporting about, the Cardinals really became gun shy when it came to moving prospects after the Ozuna trade and after letting a Randy Arozarena go for Matthew Liberatore. And I think that this is a little bit of, I think the Cubs are starting to come out of it, but I think that this is true of a lot of teams. They get burned, and so then they stop making trades.
Jose Quintana,
right? Because if you think about the way that things can snowball,
he's a Cardinal for 2 months.
Dylan Cease and who was the other one?
Eloy.
Yeah,
Eloy Jimenez. Yep.
Yeah. So, which makes you and to bring it to the Cubs, right? And obviously, there's been a lot of extension talk lately. But let's say that the Cubs lock in PCA.
Are you done with this Cardinals list yet?
Almost. We're almost there. But let's say that the Cubs lock in PCA and that they're somehow able to manage what we had been told wasn't happening, but apparently may actually be happening.
Hey, Pete.
Yeah.
Gage Workman, first hit off of a regular pitcher.
Yeah, I just saw that. Let's say that the Cubs are able to extend Kyle Tucker. Well, then all of a sudden, Alcantara and Owen Casey become a heck of a lot more expendable. And now the Cubs have pieces that if they're not scared, that they can flip for an ace. Just saying. And that's obviously what happened to Cardinals. All right, number 8.
Okay.
Failing to evolve in the area of player development, falling behind in both investment and results. We know this is true. We know this has happened.
All of that is fact. I don't know if that's fear driven or if that's just being dumb.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's dumb, but also his argument is that they They essentially didn't want to admit that they were wrong. That Mozeliak didn't want to admit he was wrong.
That part is true, but that's after the act, right?
Correct.
That's after the fact.
Correct.
I don't think that. Okay, so only two I've disagreed with so far. That one wasn't fear driven. That one's ego driven. That our way is the best way. We've had success doing this. Our model works. We're not changing it. The rest of the league passes them by. Yeah, nobody's raising their hand to say, "Yeah, I screwed up."
Yep.
That one is ego driven mistake. Fear later of not admitting you made that mistake. So if you want to argue that, but I think what caused it is ego, organizational ego.
Okay, number 9, and I don't think that you're going to argue with this one at all. The Miles Michaelis extension.
I'd say the Chris Carpenter extension too, or Matt Carpenter, not Chris.
Matt Carpenter. Yep. Yeah. Well, he didn't include that in his top 11, but I think
you're going to say Michaelis was a fear-driven.
Yeah, they're of a piece.
Then Matt Carpenter was a fear-driven extension, and a needless and stupid one too, but all because of the dumb salsa month he had.
That's right. All right. Number 10, coming back to somebody that we already talked about, removing Wilson Contreras from catching duties 32 games into 2023.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. 100%. And you should have feared looking dumber for doing it. And again, you didn't catch on to that. Yeah, that one pisses a lot of Cardinals fans off. Because and it's not just about Wilson Contreras. You do that to any player that you just bring in.
Yep. And
you don't point to your own pitching staff first.
Right.
And you start blaming it on the catcher. Like, I'm sorry, he caught for a World Series team. You know, he caught for Jake Arrieta and Kyle Hendricks. Like, don't look at him going, like, yeah, I mean, seriously, like all of a sudden you suck when you come here. He may not have been the best game caller, framer, defensive catcher. I get that. But he wasn't as awful as what people make him sound either. Right. And for them to do what they did, say, oh, he's going to play in the outfield now. After he just agreed 5-year commitment to play for you as your catcher, taking over shoes that are impossible to fill in Yadier Molina. Cardinals fans hate the treatment he got.
And I'll tell you, it's very different. And I know that it was part of the justification for doing it, but it's very different from when the Cubs had him play in the outfield, right? Because when the Cubs did send him out to left field, it was to keep his bat in the lineup and give him a rest, right? Of not having to catch every single game. They were giving him a rest while they were still, because when he was doing that, that was before the DH had come to the National League. And so they were trying to find a way to keep him in.
Here's the funny thing too. When they did it, who are they turning the catching over to?
Right.
That guy's not even on the team anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just dumbness abroad in that organization around that whole deal. Yeah, who did you have that was so much better? Herrera was a couple years away.
Yep.
Like, so who was it? Is it Pozo?
Was he even with them at that time?
I don't know who. I've never even heard of the guy before.
Okay, and then fear-based decision number 11. Okay. And I mean, obviously, you've already mentioned it. Doing literally nothing in the 24-25 offseason. That is absolutely fear.
No, that's 100%. So there's only a couple I disagreed with there, but I think it was a miss on Matt Carpenter. There was only a couple there that I thought were fear driven. The whole minor league and development, that was ego.
Yep.
Fear came later. Yeah.
So we'll link to it in the description for those of you who are interested. And Ron, I did put it up in our group chat. You should check it out. But I thought it was good. I thought it was good, and obviously it spurred some discussion here. So not a bad read.
I have an opinion on all that stuff, and Braden, you can't give your opinion on all 11 of them. He jumped on here unannounced.
You can give all 11. I'll go downstairs. I'll get a couple of drinks. Restock the refrigerator.
No, this is a Redbird Rants article.
Oh, okay. I thought because Derek Gould did something similar. I didn't know if it was Derek Gould.
No, it wasn't Gould. Now I think he was credited as a resource, I think, on one of these topics. But
okay.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty good list, man. If you can get most Cardinals fans to align on 9 or 10 of those, which I think most would. There's only a couple that I don't think were necessarily fear driven, but that's good work. That's good historical work there.
1 through 6. Can you run through those real quick? You
don't
have to elaborate.
He's just going to give you the headline on them.
Yeah, hang on. Let me reopen the tab.
By the way, Braden, this weekend while you're opening that up, called a doubleheader softball game for U of I Springfield, UIS. He had to call a doubleheader. He was supposed to be color commentating, only to find out an hour before that the main play-by-play was sick.
Nice work.
So he had to, at last minute, step in and take over. So you had to do back-to-back. So I've got those guys. I can throw the link out there. But I listened to
nice
almost all the first game, parts of the second game, and it was pretty good.
All right, so here you go, Braden. 1 through 6. Hiring Mike Matheny over Terry Francona. Number 2, allowing Albert Pujols to walk in free agency. Number 3, passing on Max Scherzer despite him wanting to pitch in St. Louis. Number 4, Dexter Fowler. Number 5, the Marcelo Ozuna trade. And number 6, not pursuing Bryce Harper in free agency.
Okay. So the one I'll comment on, Bryce Harper, in that moment for me, I was just more scared the Cubs were going to get him. I knew the Cardinals were gonna get him. I just didn't want him to be a Cub because I thought for sure he was headed to Chicago.
No, Braden, I had that secret fear too, and because you could very easily see Chicago is one of the top 4 in terms of just money available sitting there. They're in one of the top 4 markets, and I had the same. If there was any fear to that story, it was by every Cardinal fan. He's 100% right. The fear was Harper's going to be patrolling right field for the Cubs, and that was very real.
Speaking of which,
he was there for sure.
Speaking of which, because of the connection, we have to mention Chris Bryant's career may be over.
I didn't know he has a degenerative disc condition in his back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Yeah, that sucks for him, man. Just so much potential you would have thought for just a career in general. No matter where he ended up. I mean, you thought this guy would, at some point have Mike Schmidt type numbers, and kind of like a Mark Pryor story, really.
Yeah. In retrospect, did the Cubs miss on any of their 2021 sell-offs? Maybe Schwarber.
Yeah, Schwarber. Yeah. Schwarber was the worst because he was an outright let go.
Right.
Like you didn't get anything for him.
But
at all.
Rizzo, Baez. I mean,
Rizzo still sitting at home.
Rizzo's out of work.
Yeah.
Nobody wants him.
Which is crazy because it's not like he had a bad year in New York. It wasn't his most productive.
He has back issues. He can't stay healthy. You're not going to get 162 games out of him. You're not going to get 100 games.
You get he's right around 130, 120.
You're not going to
usually
get that
out.
He's aging.
Yeah, I mean,
that's true.
I think you guys are right. I think the only one they really missed out on would have been Schwarber, and that's I don't know that was hugely devastating either.
No.
You got Happ.
Thanks. Oh, which gives me the segue into our segment. As Ian Happ was being feted last week for playing his 1,000th game with the Cubs. Oh, that's why. And solely with the Cubs. There were comparisons being made between Ian Happ and the other Cubs Hall of Famers who have played 1,000 games, who have won Gold Gloves and so on. And Elliot, I had this disgusting, fearful, made me want to vomit realization. Ian Happ's going to be a Cubs Hall of Famer, isn't he?
I hope he is. We're going to go on inauguration day. Induction day. Sorry, not inauguration. Induction.
He better not get a statue.
I think so. No.
You don't think so? No. I think they will. I think he will be inducted into the Cubs Hall of Fame.
He's not going to get a statue.
No, he's not going to get a statue.
I don't think so.
God, he better not get a statue.
I mean, shit, if you're going to do that, the Cardinals might as well give Greg Jeffries a statue.
Yeah, I mean, just because of the longevity of his career with the Cubs doesn't mean he deserves to be inducted into the Cubs Hall of Fame.
These individual team Hall of Fames get a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, they do. I mean, look at this. Like, a lot of varying opinions on whether like a player like David Freese deserved to be in the Cardinals Hall of Fame. He was voted in by fans, which I think is another kind of like, Jesus, really?
He's also a World Series MVP too.
I know. So he did. He provided an electric moment, and in October of 2011. Nobody will ever forget that. But you want to put him in the same place you're putting players like, Chris Carpenter and
Right.
I don't want to throw in like Stan Musial and stuff, that's an obvious one, but David Freese himself felt like I don't really deserve to look at some of these other players that are in your Hall of Fame. Like I don't really belong there. He declined the invitation. Like he opted out. And I love how some Cardinals fans took that as a what? You don't want to be in our, like
our elite club.
Be so honored and like no, he's I think he was genuine saying you got Bob Gibson in there. You've got like Willie McGee. Like I was there for like 3 years playing and no.
Yeah.
But yeah, these Hall of Fames are a little ridiculous. You know how I feel about this, guys. I think even the All-Star selections, fans getting to do it is dumb. I wouldn't let the public vote on shit in that league.
Yeah.
I mean, now on the flip side, you get the writers voting, which sometimes they can be just as dumb, right? But
true.
So I don't know leave it up to who. I don't know. Let's AI vote.
Well, I hope you guys are right, but I just think that the Ricketts really love Ian Happ, and I think that when the time comes, I'm not saying they're going to retire his number. I don't think you're going to see his number flying from the flagpole. I don't think he's going to get a statue. But I do think he's going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame in the bleacher concourse.
If he's inducted,
there's
he gets a flag. He's going to drop the Cubs like he dropped Disney.
I tell you what, there are more popular Cubs who only played with them a year than Ian Happ.
Exactly.
Who are these 1-year Cubs?
They may have only
Nick Castellanos,
Jim Edmonds. But that's my point. It doesn't matter whether there are Cubs who are more popular than him. He's played, 8 years with them? And he's clearly not going anywhere before his contract expires.
No.
Yeah. Well, that's what, to your point. Like
so he's going to play a decade with the Cubs and they're not going to include him in their Hall of Fame?
They will. Like Matt Carpenter is going to be in the Cardinals Hall of Fame.
No, Matt Carpenter's salsa will be in the Hall of Fame.
It probably already is. An unopened jar.
I'd rather see a jar of salsa sitting there than the picture of Matt Carpenter.
Here's another fear-driven thing that's not on that list. It should have been. Not just his extension.
There you go, Duke. Rod Beck.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Rod Beck was definitely a more popular Cub than Ian Happ. A fear-driven thing was the Cardinals not wanting to sign people like Bryce Harper and just saying, we got Matt Carpenter. He's hit pretty well for us. We'll move him into the 3-hole. Problem solved.
Right. No, you're not wrong. All right, boys, that's all I got.
All right.
Ron, you got a soccer minute for us? About that time. We've been missing it.
Yeah,
it's time for Ron Soccer Minute.
Yeah. They've lost 4 in a row.
Ron, those were 2 rough podcasts that I listened to the other day.
We're very low energy because they're just like, well, look, they've dropped 4 in a row. They finally got a goal, at least, in the run of play, and it was João Klaus. The last time he scored a goal was the game I took my wife to in May 11th of 2024.
Oh my gosh!
A year later. Now in his true form, he had before his goal, he had a shot off his left foot, opposite foot, hit off the woodwork, and I'm like, well, that's how it's going to go for Klaus. He's going to come that close. But he got his own rebound and header in that I don't know how got in because it was so slow. It like bounced, like it looked like a little kid's soccer goal. But it was they scored in the run of play. They were up on Columbus Crew 1-0, and Columbus Crew in the table, league wide, they're second only to Vancouver, which is off to like a insanely hot start. So they were playing a really good team. That game should have ended in a draw. They ended up losing 2-1. There was a goal again by João Klaus in the second half that was sideline ref immediately, flag up, offsides, and everybody's looking at the stills and the replay like that should have never been called. But they didn't review it in VAR, so it didn't count. They ended up losing, but I didn't feel bad about that loss because that team they played is really good. I was expecting St. Louis to walk out of that one like 5-0. So they played well. It's the games before that last week. Sporting Kansas City, worst record in the league last week. They didn't show up. They looked just clueless on how to deal with any kind of press. They owned the possession time, but just couldn't find the net, and the quality of shots, like nothing was dangerous. And that's been their story most of this year. They've had 5 goals in 8 games. Yeah, that's not gonna fly. And so I think that come May, we get into late May, I think this new coach of theirs, if he's not able to figure it out and turn things around, it didn't stop him from jettisoning a coach last year. They looked at 3 points out of 27 possible and canned their coach. So I'm thinking that could be another thing that's very, very possible. I will say, though, that they looked good. They had just as many shots as Columbus did last week. They do have 8 starters that are out, or guys that have started that are out on injury or for whatever reasons. So they are playing hurt. Their depth is, they've had to pull up from the second team to fill some holes. But they still played very well. We'll see. Now the reward is that they get to play Vancouver, the best team in the league, this Saturday. So that one could be ugly, and it's a road game. We'll see how that one goes. But their soccer minute still fun to watch. But I would like to see a few more goals. And it looks, rumor is, if you believe everything you out there on X, their general manager Lutz is once again fishing in the Bundesliga.
Of course he is.
For some summer acquisition.
Does he know that there are other soccer leagues around the world?
Not sure. I'm not sure. But they're looking to dip there again to get some reinforcement. We'll
Look,
see.
he doesn't have to go fishing in the big pond and go to the Prem right away. Like, he could just go next door to the Netherlands and look around in the Eredivisie. The names are kind of similar.
He could go just south of the equator.
It's
maybe
just a drive.
We recorded at the park right before this one tonight, and Christian's like, just give me somebody from South Africa, just anybody different, just from a different continent, and let's see what we can do. But
meanwhile, apparently Miami is going to bring Kevin De Bruyne over, who no, he's not Kevin De Bruyne from 4 or 5 years ago, but still he's like a legitimate talent.
Yeah, they are 100% the Dodgers of MLS.
Oh man, they're making the Dodgers look like pikers, man. I want to see Miami's financial statements because that's incredible.
If Olaf doesn't make it, I only have one pick for a coach, and that's Patches O'Houlihan from the movie Dodgeball.
100%.
He had that motorized cart up and down that field. I won't throw some of the lines in there. We're on the Radcast Network now. I gotta clean it up.
You gotta tone it down. In fact, this episode, unless I'm mistaken, I think this episode is going to get a clean, not an explicit. I don't think we've dropped any.
Tempted to change that right now.
Of course you are. Elliot, anything you want to throw in before we sign out?
Looking forward to the rest of these games with San Diego. It's a good measuring stick for the Cubs right now to kind of see where they're at, and the rest of the month, apparently. So
wearing my Padres cap, Pete. Next series.
There you go.
We'll go, Mike. Because we all have one now.
We all have. That's right. We all have one. It's sitting in my closet. I've only worn it once, and that was during the playoffs last year.
Sitting in my my hat holder for this week.
No, I don't have a hat holder, but I have a shelf.
Well, you can call that a hat holder.
Well, hey, I forgot. Braden, when's your next broadcast?
My next broadcast is I'm probably going to do Saturday. This coming Saturday is another softball doubleheader. Scheduled to do color, but could always change because the last broadcast I did color for baseball, the play-by-play guy showed up 5 minutes before first pitch, and so I was already prepping to do play-by-play again. But I prefer to do softball because it's in a press box. And last Sunday when I did baseball, I got sunburnt like absolute hell. So
okay,
Braden, if we wanted to catch you, are you guys on? Is your station on Odyssey? Where could we catch your broadcast, your call?
All you got to do is search GLVC sn.com, and the games are all.
Tell you
on that
what.
website.
Before your
So,
doubleheader this week, you remind me, and I'll put it out on our X account and my own, and a link they can listen to.
yeah. So
All right.
You're supposed to say thank you for that.
doing play-by-play, but
All right, gents, that's all I got. Can't switch the cameras around because apparently something's going on with the studio tonight, and so we're just stuck in presentation mode, which is perfect. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a comment and subscribe. And if you want to help spread the word, please give us a 5-star review and tell your friends to do the same. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. And we also regularly live stream on Tuesday nights on X, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find Elliot on X at
TOR_Elliot.
Ron. Can we find you yet?
Oh, no.
You can find Ron at the park.
At the park STL.
At the Park STL, that's right. And finally, you can get in touch with us at any social media channel at Team Arrivals Pod or by email at teamarrivalspodcast@gmail.com. We will see you all next week, folks. Thanks for joining us. Take care. Have a great week. See you soon.
Good.
Nope. It says the end stream call failed. So we are still streaming.
Oh, good.
Bye.
It's still streaming.
It is. Have a good one.
Oh, great. I'm going to be sitting here and it's still streaming. I guess if we both leave, I bet it'll
We
stop.
both leave, it'll stop. Yeah.
Okay. Bye, everyone.